Hi, I am Karolina Nørby and I'm a Jungian analyst practicing in Copenhagen in Denmark. I've authored the paper In Search for the Self for Deux, the Narcissistic collusion and individuation. The interest for the topic has arisen from my analytical practice. The concept of narcissism is highly relevant for understanding the current culture of narcissism, a term Christopher Lasch coined more than 40 years ago. No matter where around the globe the analyst practice is situated, they would probably encounter the phenomenon in their clinical practice, perhaps almost on a daily basis. And yet, it has been slightly overlooked by the Jungian community. This paper examines the question of why the pattern of narcissistic object relating, or collusion, develops early in life and how it may impact the lifelong process of individuation. Based on the Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Jörg Willi's theory of couple and collusion, and rooted in my background as a Jungian analyst, the aim of the article is to address two main questions. Why the collusive dynamics and identificatory state develop in narcissistic relationship, and secondly, how the narcissist's love relationship may affect the lifelong process of individuation. In the beginning of the paper, I'll briefly present the reader to the theory of collusions, followed by a section on the narcissistic stage of development and the narcissistic character structure, which will be exemplified by several short vignettes on the three major types of narcissistic character structure. I'll then move on to examine various hypotheses about the origins of narcissistic collusions. The theory of self-objects would be examining Jung's idea about the projection of anima-animus functional complexes on the suitable other, and what happens when the ego does not identify with the persona, but it identifies with the anima or animus complexes. The attachment theory as well will be examined, and last but not least, the concept of projective identification. In the second part of the paper, I'll examine a couple of models of the process of individuation and link these to the narcissistic pattern of relating, discussing how identification may be seriously impeded due to the lifelong pattern of narcissistic object relating and the limited access to the self. The concept of the self, the Jungian self with a capital S, will be the overarching concept. Not only is it the basic concept in the process of individuation, but it is also the theme that runs throughout the whole article and unites the different sections of the paper. It will show up finally one more time at the end of the paper, while I'll reflect on the idea of how this vicious circle created and fueled by the narcissistic collusion might be resolved. In the narcissistic collusion, the dynamics between the partners inhibit the ability of the ego to get access to the unconscious and the self to get access to the ego. This process creates obstacles to growth and individuation, which led me to suggest the notion of impeded individuation in narcissism. Finally, I do hope that this very brief presentation of my article, which will be published in the February 2021 edition of the Journal of Analytical Psychology, has awakened some interest to go on reading the paper and reflecting on the phenomenon, which I believe is presenting itself with an increasing intensity in our analytical practice. Thank you for your kind attention.